All right, today for this Food Friday, we are making one of my favorite recipes that I eat almost every single day. When I first started learning about fitness and nutrition and making meals that weren't just plain old chicken and rice and veggies every day, French toast was one of the ones that I discovered right away, and I was like, what? I can have that every day and get ripped? Sweet. So once I learned this recipe, I used it all the time, and you are now going to be able to do the same thing. Here's what you're gonna need. Cinnamon, vanilla, low-calorie bread. Use whatever one you want. I found this one at the superstore for super cheap. It's 50 calories per slice. We need some egg whites. We need some plain Greek yogurt. Strawberries, frozen, are the kind that I prefer because you can chop them up and make them kind of gooey. You need a little spray oil for your pan. And this is some sauce that my woman taught me you can add to yogurt, you can add it to the strawberries, and it gives it a nice flavor. We also need some fake sugar. I'm using Splenda. Use whatever kind you want. As per usual, I have my scale with me. I have this giant bowl because I'm gonna make all the egg white mixture in here, which is where the bread is gonna get dipped. I have a separate little bowl for the berries, and I have my plate, which is where everything is gonna go in the end. You wanna make sure you have a frying pan big enough to handle all 4 slices of bread once you put them in. This whole thing takes 10 minutes to make, and you're eating good. I'm gonna start by putting my pan on like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. We want it to be nice and low. By the time I'm done mixing all this, the pan will be warm enough to apply the bread. Turn my scale on. First thing I'm doing, I'm adding just a little bit of vanilla extract. You don't have to weigh it if you don't want to, but I usually just put a few, maybe 5 milliliters worth or so. Gonna add a little sprinkle of cinnamon. Not too much, just enough to bring the taste of cinnamon into it. Gonna shake up our egg whites here. So I want 200 grams of egg whites, basically 50 grams per slice of bread. And pour that in on the scale until it says 200 exactly. And a little bit of fake sugar, just a little bit. So now that I have all that in this bowl, I'm gonna whisk it up in a minute. But first, I'm gonna put my frozen strawberries into this other bowl. Gonna put 1.5 serving sizes based on the nutrition scale. So it's 210 grams. A few grams over, a few grams under, I don't really worry too much. So the reason I do the strawberries now is because I can put them in the microwave for a while I do the rest. Start with 1.5 minutes and then add 30 seconds on after you mash them up. And then keep adding 30-second intervals to your liking in terms of how it turns into like that strawberry puree. So I would normally use a whisk, but I'm not at home. So I'm just gonna use a fork and beat this mixture until it looks real good. We want it all to be together and be nice and one mixture-y. Is that even a word? Mixture-y? It is now. It's usually gonna turn the liquid brown because of the cinnamon and the vanilla, and it's gonna froth up and be pretty bubbly as well. Once you've got it all mixed up, you're gonna be able to dip your bread in. No more clumpies inside. So taking out 4 slices of bread, my pan should be hot enough now to add the French toast. So the first thing I'm gonna do, spray out the whole bottom of the pan. Now I'm gonna take each piece of bread and I'm gonna dunk it. We're gonna let it soak and collect as much of this good egg white mixture as we can. This is where a good chunk of the protein comes from. All right, I'm gonna throw 1 in. Same thing here. Once we get to piece 3 and 4, I kind of twist the thing around, bowl around, and use the bread almost as like a spatula. Perfect measurements. Boom, so I got a 3-minute timer on. I'm gonna flip all 4 pieces over at that time. Now, while these pieces of French toast are cooking, we are going to chop up our strawberries. So after about 1.5 minutes in the microwave, they've melted down a little bit. Use a fork or a knife, whatever you prefer, and chop them up into little ooey gooey bits. I like to mash them up so that way it's like a strawberry puree. There is a more technical way to do this. It involves like cooking on a pan and like lemon juice, I think, and some sugar added and stuff. It takes a while and it's kind of complicated, and I like the simplest way of just microwaving it, mashing it up, and then being done after. And this is what I've found to be the easiest cleanup as well. So now that it's all mashed up, looking good and mushy right there and liquidy, I'm gonna add just a little flavor to it. You can buy these at, I don't know, Winners or wherever, online, Mateo's. 0-calorie syrups. I like different kinds. You don't need very much. Just add a little bit, stir it into your strawberries, and it enhances the flavor. Because we're using plain yogurt here, which can be kind of sour on its own. Sometimes I find the strawberry by itself added to that plain yogurt just isn't enough. So when you add this little bit of flavor, it just gives it that extra oomph. Now we want it to be warm. So I'm adding it in for 1 more minute. That's my timer going off. I'm gonna flip all these French toast pieces over. I'm doing a terrible job here. So this stove is different from the one I'm used to using. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more heat because it's just not brown enough on that one side. Our strawberries are also done. Now that I've flipped the French toast over, I'm just gonna restart my 3-minute timer and let it chill. 3-minute timer is done on the second one. I'm gonna turn that off. Gonna take these 4 pieces of French toast. We're gonna put the French toast onto the plate. Don't forget to turn your stove off. Sometimes I forget to do that and then I catch it 2 minutes later and I'm like, whoa, nearly killed everybody in my house. So at this point, you have multiple choices. I like to make mine extra proteiny, so I add yogurt and strawberries on top. This has tons of protein in it and it takes the flavor of whatever you add to it. That's why I like plain. Sometimes I'll use coconut. It's more calories, but it tastes way better. Sometimes I'll use vanilla. Use a flavor if you want. If you have room in your calories to play around, this is where I would suggest making shifts and adjustments because you still get the protein from the yogurt and then you get that extra flavor. However, some people like to kick it old school and butter or syrup their French toast, and you can absolutely do that at this point. If you do, it's significantly less calories, but it's also way less protein. So for me, I'll happily take the extra calories by adding the protein, the flavor, and the strawberries on top. So I use 1 serving size of this, which is 100 calories, which is 175 grams. Divide that by 4 and it's roughly 85 grams per piece of French toast. So here's where I don't really worry too much about being 100% accurate per piece of French toast. So I'm just gonna add a scoop on each one until I see on my scale that the total amount of yogurt on here is 175 grams. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna smother my French toast with it. I literally want this thing to be dripping. Last thing to do is add our melted strawberries on top. If you have a rubber spatula, use your rubber spatula. I'm just using my finger because I'm the only one that's eating this. Now take this and spread it all over and voila. You have super high in protein French toast with yogurt and strawberries. This is delicious. Total calories, 473, 66.1 grams of carbs, 2 grams of fat, 47.5 grams of protein, if you make it exactly as I showed you. We're gonna finish strong by taking a bite. That's delicious. This is one of my favorite meals that I make. I literally make this pretty much every single day of my life. Hit me up in the comments below if you try this recipe and you love it as much as I love it. Let me know if you make a variation of it that's slightly different from how I did it, that you think is still good, that's still high in protein and low in calories. Have a creative day. That was a terrible sound and I'm very sorry.